The question is that the diagram shows some coffee beans. Caffeine occurs naturally in coffee beans. Caffeine is a white crystalline solid. It is very soluble in hot water, but less soluble in cold water. Plan an investigation to obtain pure crystalline sample of caffeine from coffee beans. Assume that all other substances in coffee beans are very soluble in both hot and cold water. You are provided with coffee beans and some common laboratory apparatus. Now, if you see this question carefully, they are asking us to separate caffeine, which is present in coffee beans, from the rest of the substances, which you can call them impurities. You have to get pure crystals of caffeine. So this question is related to the topic of crystallization. And the next information that is given in the question is that it's about caffeine, that it is very soluble in hot water but less soluble in cold water, whereas the other substances which are present in coffee beans are very soluble in both cold and hot water. So this difference in solubility can be used to separate different solids. As crystallization, it's a process to separate pure solid in the form of crystals. We get pure crystals of pure solid. We separate them from the impurities which remain in the solution, and we separate out the pure crystalline solid. So for that purpose, first of all, we have to select the solvent, which is already given in this question, and it is water. We have to select a solvent in which the impurities are more soluble, and the substance that has to be crystallized out, it should be less soluble in it. So if in this case, we are told that the impurities are soluble in cold and hot water both, but caffeine is less soluble in cold water. It means that it will not remain in dissolved form in cold water. It will crystallize out. It will form crystals in cold water. So what are the steps that we need to follow? First of all, we need to powder, or we need to crush the coffee beans with the help of pestle mortar. So you can crush or powder coffee beans using pestle mortar. And then in the next step, you can dissolve the crushed coffee beans in water. Third, what should we do? We should heat it. We can heat it. And when we will heat it, what will happen? The impurities and caffeine both will get dissolved in water. They will both dissolve in water. And in the fourth step, what we can do is that we can filter it. We can filter it. Why should we filter it? We can filter it just to remove any coffee grains that are still that are still not dissolved in it. So we can filter it out. Then in the next step, so what will happen in the during the process of filtration? What will happen when you filter it? Anything that cannot pass through the filter paper is called residue, and what comes in the beaker is called filtrate. So leave the filtrate Let it cool down. Because the filtrate contains both the caffeine as well as the dissolved impurities. But remember that now when you cool the filtrate, what will happen? That in cold water, the caffeine will crystallize out. Caffeine will form crystals. So as you cool it down, what will happen? That caffeine crystallizes out, or it forms crystals. But the rest of the impurities, as the rest of the impurities are soluble in cold and hot water both, so they will remain in water, whereas caffeine will crystallize out. Next, now you have got the crystals of caffeine. You have separated the crystals. You have got the pure crystals of caffeine. So you can now again you can filter them. You can take them out by the process of filtration. You'll get the crystals of caffeine as residue. Now you can rinse them with water, or you can wash these caffeine crystals with water, and then you can dry them in the folds of the filter paper. Thank you so much for watching.